going to read you a story called Sean O'Hay and the Woman in the White Dress. Sean O'Hay was a piper, and there was hardly a dance tune that he could not play. Whenever he played, the people present could not control their feet. First they would be tapping at the ground, and it wouldn't be too long before their legs carried them up to the dance floor, dancing away, despite themselves. Sean and his wife Judy lived in a small cottage at the foot of the hill of Knocknadoon, overlooking Loch Gur. Whenever there was a wedding or a christening or any kind of a gathering, a message would come to Sean to the house to come along and to play his pipes. Sean was always rewarded well for his playing, so himself and his wife were never short of money, but lived comfortably enough in their cosy little home. One evening in the late summer, Sean was out walking around Knocknadoon, checking out on the cattle. He was taking his ease, enjoying the mild August evening, a gentle breeze, the light reflecting from the lake and the beautiful scenery all around him. All was well in his world, and nothing was disturbing him. When he heard a voice behind him, he turned, and there was a young, lovely-looking woman, all dressed in white. "Good evening to you, Sean O'Hara," she said in a soft, Sean O'Hay, in a soft, sweet voice that sounded to Sean the way honey tastes. "And good evening to you, miss," said Sean. "How can I help you? Have you lost your way by any chance? Are you looking for somewhere?" "Ah, 'tis yourself I'm looking for, Sean. I was looking for you. I have come to fetch you to play your pipes at the ball tonight." "Ah, now is that so?" said Sean. "You can be sure there will be a generous reward if you choose to come with me now, I tell you that much." "And is it far I'd have to go?" asked Sean. "Only my wife Judy would be mad with me if I was away for too long. Sure, she would be so cross she would not smile to me for 7 days or more." "'Tis not so far now, Sean, but perhaps it is best that you go and ask your good wife first before you come away with me, and I will wait here for you to return." So Sean made his way to his home and told Judy about the lady in white. Judy was not too keen and tried to dissuade him from going. "Oh, I do not think you should go with this stranger, Sean. Let me tell you, I had a strange dream this morning, and it left me afraid that something bad will happen," said Judy. "I dreamed I was making my way home from old Nelly's, having fetched some starch, and didn't the starch turn as yellow as gold? And on the road home there was a fine lady in a carriage throwing up 2 gold balls in one hand and catching them with the other. All the time she was looking down at me with a mocking sneer on her face. I was so afraid that I woke up shaking with a fever. Now, Sean, I tell you no lie. I don't know what it means, Sean, but 'tis surely a warning." "Arra, go away out of that, Judy," said Sean. "You made your tea too hot or too strong last night. It was only a dream. There's no harm in it at all, and she promised she'd pay me well. I must go now, for the lady will be getting impatient, waiting for me for so long." What Sean did not know was that the lady in the white gown was none other than Anya, the queen of the Munster fairies. And the ball was to be in the fairy palace down below in Knockfennel. Now, saying goodbye to Judy, Sean tucked his pipes under the arm and made his way back to the spot where the lady in white was now sitting in a magnificent carriage, drawn by 2 fine grey horses. She opened the carriage door and bade Sean to join her inside, and when he climbed in and settled beside her, the horses trotted off along up the road. As the carriage wound its way along the narrow lanes, not one word was spoken between the two of them. Sean did not know what he would have said to such a fine lady, and she herself just sat and smiled, with a far-away gaze, looking into, with a faraway gaze look in her eyes. Soon they were travelling along wide avenues lined with tall trees heavy with fruits, and the perfume of sweet-scented roses wafted in the air. At last they stopped before a grand mansion. The doors were open and Sean was led into the ballroom. Oh, and what a sight it was indeed! Gentlemen in frock coats embellished with golden braids bowed to him. Ladies in white satin gowns with low necklines courtesied before him. Tall mirrors stretched from floor to ceiling, and the lights of 100 golden candelabras were reflected there. A tall glass full of a golden liquid was brought for Sean, and by Jenny, you know what? He downed it in one. It was an unfamiliar taste, fiery but sweet. "Will you make sure you have a good measure of that crater for me in the morning before I go home?" he said, and then he set himself down in a gilded chair and made ready to play the pipes for the night. Well, now the whole company was up and dancing straight away. The small, the tall, the fat, the thin, the strange and the beautiful. Every single one of them was up on their feet, and Sean playing tune after tune after tune the whole night through without a rest. His eyes were on the lovely young women as they whirled and wheeled around the room, a fine colour in their cheeks, and now and then he had a strange thought while he was playing, that he saw shoals of fish gazing at him through the large window of the ballroom. He wondered then perhaps it was not in fact just some miles from home along the road, but instead the palace of Gerode Irla behind the enchanted lake. Oh, it could, but never mind that. He just played on and on and on and got back into the music, and all of the good folk danced and laughed and never took a rest the whole night long, and they were up all night dancing, sure, anyway. At last his hostess brought Sean his glass of the crater. He laid down his pipes and took his drink. As soon as the music stopped, the dancers, exhausted, retired to their beds. But before they disappeared, each of the dancers placed a golden guinea into Sean's hat. The lady in white came to Sean then and handed him a small purse. "It is a sparine and stalline, a bag of salt that will never be found empty," she explained. "Thank you for your playing, Sean O'Hay. I told you that there would be a grand reward." And Sean thanked her, and then, exhausted himself from the whole night's piping, he fell into a deep sleep. When Sean awoke, the sun was already high in the sky. He was cold and stiff, and rolling over he found that he was lying on the damp ground. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and looked around, and where was he but up on the top of the Shudicon Beg Bantee, and all his golden coins were nothing but dry gold and copper leaves. He unfastened the strings and opened up the purse, and inside he found that the lady in the white dress had kept her word, and the purse indeed was still full of salt. Well, at least Judy would be grateful for that, for salt, after all, was the one thing that made everything taste good. Sean had been known all around as a piper, but after that August night he had another claim to fame. He now had a fine tale to tell by the fireside of a winter's night. And that's my story for you for tonight. It comes from the Limerick Folk Tales by Ruth Marshall. There you go. Good night.